everyone, welcome back to Glue La La. If you are new here, my name's Jess, and today I'm stepping away from my wheelhouse a little bit. I usually do a lot of farmhouse stuff, but today I'm going to try my hand at some boho projects, and they all feature my favorite color, which is blue. Alright everyone, let's get started. For the first project, I'm going to use 3 of these square wall art pieces from the Dollar Tree. Now this first one, I like the print on it, so I wanted to keep that to use in the base of the tray that I'm going to create. But the other 2, I didn't care so much about the print, so I just wanted to get the canvas off of all 3 frames. But I wanted to be extra careful with that first one, just to make sure that I didn't damage the print at all. Then I took the mineral color by Waverly and I gave each of the 3 frames a good dry brushing with the paint, and I made sure to do it on the top, the bottom, the inside, and the outside. I think the one I didn't do the bottom because I knew it was going to be the bottom of the tray. Next, I took a piece of pretty heavy-duty chipboard and I cut it down to fit inside the frame, and I just did a little dry fitting here to make sure it looked good. So when I had it to the size that I wanted it, and I'm trying to show you here, it's pretty thick. Like it's a good bit thicker than, like, say, a cereal box. I took that print and I hot glued it back down to the chipboard, and I was trying to be careful where I put the hot glue because this was a little bit thinner of fabric and I wanted to make sure you couldn't really see the hot glue too much through the fabric. Then I just trimmed off the excess from around the chipboard, and then I hot glued this onto the back side of the bottom square that I was going to use for the bottom of the tray. Next, I took the second frame and I shifted it so that it was opposite from the first one, and I just used a pencil to kind of mark where I wanted it to be, and then I was able to add a couple dots of hot glue to hold that in place. And then the third one is going to go on top of that, and it's going to line up with the bottom frame that I put down first. So I think this looks pretty cool as it is, and you could definitely use this as a little tray or even as just a wall hanging. But I kind of wanted to define 2 of the ends a little bit to kind of mimic how a tray would have 2 handles on each end. So I'm just using this chunky blue yarn that I had in my stash, and I'm wrapping it around just 2 of the center corners there. That way it kind of gives the effect of having a handle like a tray would normally have, but it's a little bit more abstract too. I'm really excited with how this tray turned out. I think it's really cool and boho, and like I said, it has a real abstract look to it. But it also would look really pretty just hanging up on a wall. And it is a little bit smaller, so you would only be able to fit a few things in it as a tray, and it would definitely be more decorative, not really functional. For the second project, I wanted to create a piece of wall art, and when I was looking up different boho designs, I kept seeing like the rainbow shape everywhere. It wasn't necessarily a true, red, orange, yellow rainbow. It was just the shape of a rainbow was in a lot of designs. So I knew I wanted to create a wall hanging that had that shape on it. So I started out with 3 of my favorite chunky yarns, and I cut 5 lengths, 5 equal lengths, and I'm starting out with a shorter piece because I'll work my way up. So I looped all 5 pieces in half, and then I tied a knot in the one end and I taped it to my desk. So you can see here I have 5 pieces that are folded over, and this is a technique I used to do in middle school when I used to make friendship bracelets for my friends. So I looped 3 of the loops on my right hand, and I started out with 2 of the loops on my left hand. And I'm going to take my ring finger and I'm going to grab the bottom loop, the bottom string, and then the top string and pull it through. And now on my right hand I only have 2 loops, so I'm going to switch it to my index finger and my middle finger, and then with my ring finger I'm going to grab that bottom string, the bottom string of the next loop, and then the top string of the third loop and pull it through. So you can see it's just kind of a basic weave, and it's pretty easy to do and it goes pretty quickly. And every time you switch, you just want to make sure you switch it over to your index and your middle finger, and then your ring finger goes the bottom string of the first loop, the bottom string of the middle loop, and then the top string of the top loop, and you pull it through. And this whole thing only took me about 5 minutes to do. It goes pretty quickly once you kind of get the hang of it. So after I had weaved my way down through the lengths of this first color, I created 2 more with the other 2 yarns that I had picked out, and I just made sure that each one was a few inches longer than the one that I had created before. And when you get to the end of the weaving, after you can go down as far as you want, as far as you're comfortable going. You don't have to go the whole way to the end. But when you get down as far as you want, all you have to do then is tie it in a knot and then cut the loops so it creates a fringe on the bottom. And then here you can see a close-up of how the weaving comes out. It's like you took the 5 loops and you just created a new little type of rope. So to complete the project, I'm using one of these 8x10 canvases from the Dollar Tree, and I just laid my ruler out just to kind of help give me a guide as to where the center of the canvas is. So I started with my smallest piece that I had woven, and I hot glued 2 little dots down, and I glued the knots right to the bottom of the canvas. And then I took the next longest piece and I did the same thing where I just added a little dot of hot glue along the bottom of the canvas just to hold it in place. And then I did the same thing with the outside of the rainbow shape. I just hot glued the knots onto the bottom of the canvas, and then I flipped it over and I secured the little arches in place with a little bit more hot glue. I did a little bit of hot glue towards the bases and then a little dot towards the top as well. So to be able to hang this, I decided to use some of the nautical rope from the Dollar Tree, and I just tied a knot in one end and I separated out the 3 strands that make up the rope. And then I hot glued it to the side of the canvas, and I hot glued the whole way up on the one side, and then I didn't hot glue on the top because that's where I left a little bit of space for hanging. And then I hot glued down the other side, and then when I got to the bottom, all I did was tie another knot, and then I trimmed it off, and I made sure that I separated the strands again just so it would kind of fit in with the fringiness at the bottom of the rainbow. The nautical rope just kind of acted as another section of the rainbow. This piece came together fairly quickly, and if you're not comfortable using the weaving technique that I showed you, you could always just double up the yarn and do a regular 3-strand braid. I think that would be really cute too. But it was fun for me to do the weaving because it brought back a lot of memories of middle school. My friends and I would sit around at recess and make bracelets for each other, and we used to use them like real colorful embroidery floss for it, so that was a lot of fun. Let me know in the comments if you and your friends used to make bracelets for each other. Okay, so for the last project, I took 2 of these adhesive cork sheets from the Dollar Tree and I cut it down into 3-inch wide pieces. So I wanted 4 pieces that were 3 inches wide. And I was inspired to do this piece by this piece that I saw on Anthropology. But instead of creating 5 different hangings that you have to hang separately, I wanted to make mine one cohesive piece. So the pieces that I had cut down, the 4 pieces that were 3 inches wide, I just used some painter's tape to tape them together on the back. And then I traced out a circle that was, I think, about 11 inches around. I used my Cricut to do it because I don't have a compass. And then I just traced it out on the 4 cork pieces using my pencil. So I knew I wanted to create an ombre effect, so I took the plaster color by Waverly and this English navy color by Apple Barrel, and I started with the plaster color. Now this is the left hand piece as it'll hang, but I flipped it over so that it was easier for me to paint. So I painted the left hand piece with the plaster color, and then I painted the right hand piece with the English navy. And then the two center pieces, all I had to do then was mix a little bit of the English navy into the plaster color to create a different shade of blue, like a really light shade of blue. And I made sure I did that on the piece that was going to hang right next to the plaster color. And then I went through and I added more of the English navy color to that color that I created, just to darken it up a little bit more, and that was going to be on the third panel. That way it went the plaster color, the lightest blue color, the medium blue color, and then the English navy on the right hand side. So to connect my 4 panels, I'm using one of these extra long barbecue skewers that you can find at the Dollar Tree. And since my piece is measured out about 12 inches wide, but I knew I was going to create just a little bit of a gap between each piece, I cut the skewer down into 2 lengths that were about 14 inches. That way I had a little bit of an overhang on each side. So I just spaced out my panels and I added just a bit of hot glue along the bottom. And you can see I have my ruler laid there just to kind of help make it a little bit even. And then I laid the skewer down over one side, and then I just repeated that along the top side. Then to be able to hang this, I just used some of this thicker jute from Walmart, and I created a slip knot, and I slipped it over one end of the hanging and I tightened it up, and then I did the same thing on the other side. I just made a little bit of a slip knot and slid it over the end. And then I just secured it along the back a little bit with some hot glue, since those knots aren't very sturdy, but I kind of liked how they looked hanging on this. That's why I chose to do that. But the hot glue held them in place, and then I just trimmed off the excess jute. I really like how this turned out. This is pretty different from my normal style of decorating and DIYing, but this came together really, really quickly. Now the one thing I will say, this cork does tend to curl a little bit, so after I had it hanging on the wall, it started to flip up a little bit. So I did go back through and I just kind of glued some craft sticks along the back just to help flatten it out. Here's a final look at all the projects. I think my favorite is probably this tray. I just think it's so neat how it came together, and I really like that all 3 of these projects were pretty simple to do. It was really exciting for me to try something different. I'm so used to doing farmhouse things, so it was a lot of fun for me to step out and do some boho decorations for a change. Alright everyone, let me know in the comments which one is your favorite. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, make sure you hit subscribe, ring the bell, hit the thumbs up, do all the things. Have a great week, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye!